Episode 2, The Labyrinth. Did you find anything? A bunch of spiders and traces of teleportation magic. Isn't he an ordinary? Constantino would have mentioned it if he knew Pagat was a warlock. So, it has to be an artifact. Nomad's door? No, something more powerful, more dangerous, since I could still feel the fallout after so much time. Either a Karov Broj or a Dakar's gate. So that snob did have something to do with Nova's disappearance. We can't be sure, but the probability seems to be very high. He said he had information on the portrait. Could have lied. His story is pretty convincing, but I'm having a hard time believing Nova would just walk away like that. She was nowhere to go. Right, she has nowhere to go. Emerging from her thoughts, Vesper closed her eyes and squeezed the ridge of her nose. What's our next move? We don't have that many options. Onyx leaned back against the wall with her arms folded across her chest. We need to search the house. I can get in through a window and look around quietly. You don't even know what to look for. But you do, Shin. Vesper caught Lucian's eye and nodded, understanding what he was getting at. I'll bind the two of you with a mind thread. What? No. An iron characteristic expression crossed the warlock's face. Fear. What is this thread? It's a spell that allows two people to share their senses. Sight, smell, hearing, etc. Okay. What's the catch? On top of being able to perceive the world through you, I'll also gain access to your thoughts. I'll see your past. You're saying we'll get into each other's heads? The anamorphix grimaced after a minute of reflection, however. She pursed her lips, her decision made. I don't like the idea, but that doesn't matter. Nova is the one we should be thinking about right now. Looking at Shin, she made herself say, I'm ready. Shin ran his hand over the back of his head. Give me some time. We'll start when I'm back. He turned around and went into the kitchen without waiting for an answer. The air felt electric after his exit. Those remaining in the room looked at each other, awkwardly unsure what to do next. And finally, Vesper said she would check on Shin. Onyx, you should get some rest now. The better you feel, or both feel, when I cast the spell, the safer it will be. Something could go wrong. Something could always go wrong. He left for the kitchen. The door creaked softly as it opened and closed. The warlock sitting at a table showed no reaction to Vesper's presence. Sitting down across from him, she tried to look into his eyes. What are you afraid of? Stupid question. No, it isn't. Only now did he look up at her. It is because you know the answer. Stop it. Talk to me. I don't want her to see what I did in Yulan, Mateo, Kafira. Shin. The man ran his hand over his face with a heavy sigh. Please don't. Reaching out to put her hand on his shoulder, she spoke a little softer. You know you couldn't have done anything differently. I do. Doesn't change the fact that they're dead because of me. He rubbed his chest as if he couldn't get enough air. Turning to the window, he tried to hide the ache in his old wound. They sat in silence for a couple of minutes, surrounded, ambushed by his pain. Vesper chuckled softly, looking down. Remember our first meeting? Shen couldn't help but smile at the memory. As if anyone could forget something like that. I was very curious to meet the mysterious person who arranged for my early release. And yet you pretty much told me to go screw myself within, 5 minutes of the meeting? I'm thankful you ended up changing your mind and accepted my offer to join the mission. So much time has passed since, but you don't seem to have changed a bit. He shrugged as a smile began to fade. Perhaps it's time to let them go. I can't. I don't want to. His hoarse voice whisper chilled her skin. With nothing else to say, Vesper got up from the table and headed for the door, but hesitated when her hand touched the handle. I'm worried about you, Shen. Sometimes it feels like this pain will swallow you whole. Please, don't let that happen. Shaking her head, the witch left her old friend alone. There was nothing else to do or wait for. Not wasting any time, Vesper looked through her notebook where she kept instructions and notes regarding spells that she didn't use often. Soon, Shen returned to the living room, resigned. Where do you need us, Vesper? The witch stood in the middle of the room. Sit on the floor with your backs to each other. I need your heads to touch. Lucian, would you look for, Merrill root extract in my bag in the meantime? There should be several vials. Let's take them all with us. Close the door behind you, and don't come back until I tell you to. I need complete silence. Got it. He left. When Onyx and Shen were in position, Vesper took a step towards them, preparing her presence. Close your eyes and breathe normally. When I start tying, the thread of memories will rush in you all at once. You will experience each other's entire lives in a matter of minutes. Brace yourselves, it's going to hurt. Don't rush to get up after the ritual is over. It will take you some time to get used to everything and figure out how to switch from your senses to your partners and back. Partners? What is this, my worst nightmare? Listen, you mangy cat. Hey, Mangy, my fur is very healthy for your information. Shut up! The witch's voice split into three. Its power made everything in the room shake. A green flame lit up the room. Onyx and Shin quickly put their hands on the floor to keep from falling face down. I'm trying to concentrate here. She took a deep breath, and waves of her presence took a calmer form. Untora ferhi lem antos Nakomenti memor. Reciting the spell, Vesper put her fingers together as if grasping something delicate. She waited a moment, then pulled them apart between her hands. Now there was a luminous thread woven from magic. Unra, Unra, Unra. Repeating the word over and over again, she wrapped the thread around Shin and Onyx's heads. The anamorphics twitched while Shin sat motionless. The witch sat down on the floor and continued chanting. About a half an hour later, the ritual was complete. Vesper exhaled, wiping perspiration off her forehead, and slowly stood up. Well... They opened their eyes, but remained silent. Onyx was biting her lower lip. Shin was staring blankly into space. Looks like everything worked as it should have. The spell will start to subside in about 3 hours, so we need to hurry. But you have a bit of time. I'll go talk to Lucian. She closed the door behind her. Laden silence enveloped the room for several minutes. Soon, Onyx spoke up. You never mentioned you had a familiar. She lowered her head, not turning to face him. They continued to sit there with their backs touching. The warlock smiled bitterly. All the things you saw, that's what you want to talk about. Pausing, Onyx eventually decided to ignore the question. You said bonds were stupid. They are. As you can tell, Sephora's gone and our connection didn't help me save her. That's not how it works. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I had heard that you lost friends, but I didn't know your sister was among them too. Yeah. Shen rubbed his tired eyes. He moved as if to get up, but changed his mind and remained seated. He shifted, preparing to force himself to speak again. I'm sorry, too, for you. I don't know about your mother, though. I almost want to say she deserved her fate. But I suppose I shouldn't stick my nose in your business. How you do, it beats me. Visit her, I mean. Even though it only makes everything harder for you, I feel like I would have given up a long time ago. You wouldn't have. You're too loyal. And that's not a compliment, loyal, as in stubborn, nauseatingly so. They both laughed softly. Briefly, finally, Onyx stood up and walked around to Shin, holding out her hand. Come on. Nova is waiting. Shin looked at her hand, twitched an eyebrow, and then stood up by himself. Onyx rolled her eyes. Vesper, Lucian, and you. You have to see this. The old man can still get up from the floor on his own. It's a miracle. Already approaching the doorway, the warlock gave Onyx the middle finger, but his lips stretched into an involuntary grin. After finally making preparations, the group headed back to Herbert Pegot's mansion. Renato quietly closed the door behind him after checking twice that the corridor was empty. Cardinal Barone was busy writing, not granting the priest a glance. He kept his attention on the paper. Still, Renato knew he was listening. Your Eminence.
Straight to the point, Father Bernardi. Please.
Renato squared his shoulders, clasping his hands in front of him as he spoke. He ran his right hand thumb over the knuckle on his left. Nova didn't come to our meeting. Cardinal continued writing.
Did that trouble you?
It seemed alarming. She didn't mention she wasn't coming, and I don't know if she returned from Geneva. Renato was genuinely worried about Nova. She was too responsible, too dedicated to the cause to just not show up like that. It could only mean one thing: something had happened to her, something serious. The thoughts, guesses, theories about her current location and condition disturbed the priest. Putting the fountain pen on the table, the cardinal looked up.
I see. What are you planning to do about it?
I was hoping to get some guidance from you, Your Eminence. Pushing aside the papers with the ink still wet, the Cardinal Barone put his elbows on the table and interlaced his fingers. His gaze softened.
Your father, may God rest his soul, raised a worthy son. When the time came for me to call another person to the cause, I knew it would be you. I chose you both out of respect for Valerio, my good friend, and because I always knew that you were very capable. You have accepted this burden, and I expect you to prove that I wasn't mistaken. That I was not mistaken about the Lord's guidance. Do what you ought to. Do your part. Let me know when you figure out what is going on. Nova is our only chance of salvation. We cannot lose that chance.
Renato nodded.
May the Holy Spirit show you the way.
The young man hoped with all of his heart that she would. Nova continued to stand in front of the portrait, studying the details of the painting. Alright, I won't figure anything out just by staring at it. He entered Fata Morgana with ease. He already knew what she would try first. Extending her hand, the time catcher touched. I want to go with the picture frame and also the canvas. I guess let's just jump into it. Canvas. Trusting her instinct, Nova didn't push, didn't try to break in by force, but found a point of contact between the past and the present. Time blurred, allowing her to pass. A day, 3 days, week, month. The painting remained the same as expected, but soon the witch lost track. The young man's gaze seemed to cling to her, sly, unexpectedly unpleasant. I don't think I'm getting close to the limit of my abilities. Her breathing became sharper, her fingers began to tremble. Deciding not to test the patience of forces in charge of the passage of time, Nova stopped. She moved away from the painting and squatted down to recover. How far back did I manage to go? A couple of years? The young woman shook her head. Even if I train every day, there's no way I can reach the potential needed to go to that far in the past. It's impossible. The thought stirred a feeling of irritation. She beat the inside of her cheek, her lower eyelid twitching. Damn painting, damn Pigot, damn world. Fatigue and anger gathered and tears at the corner of her eyes, but she refused to let them roll down her cheeks, wiping them away with the sharp movements, hugging herself, but tightly she tried to calm down. What if I'm here forever? Well, clear. We aren't in view of the cameras anymore. Great. As they got closer to the house, Lucian turned to Onyx and Shin. Are you ready? Yeah? You don't sound very convincing. The threat thing is hard to get used to. Everything's still mixed up. We'll figure it out. We don't have much time. I'm going in. Ow. Shin nodded at her, and Onyx disappeared into the mansion. The trio, left outside, fell silent, waiting. The warlock sat down, leaning against the wall of the house, and closed his eyes to focus on what Onyx was seeing and hearing. At some point, he tensed up. Yes. Keep going down. We're getting closer. After a moment, Shin shuddered and opened his eyes. What is it? She lost consciousness. Something bit her in the neck, some creature. It came up from behind. Give me a moral root. I've seen the place. I can teleport there. Vesper handed him a vial. He drank the extract and then quickly created a portal on the ground with a white powder that he brought with him. I'll teleport you both. Lucian and Vesper stepped into the circle and Shin brought them into the mansion. It's very blue. Oof. It was quiet. They moved forward silently. The warlock walked a step ahead, while Lucian and Vesper stayed behind him, looking around. Onyx was nowhere to be seen. A few minutes later, they reached a fork. The corridor split into two. Stick together. Peering around the corner, they realized there were more forks. Any notable details were obscured by the darkness. I can see better in the dark. Stand behind me. He took a step forward. Shin and Vesper put their hands on his shoulders, and they continued on. The further they went, the darker the corridors became. The vampire wasn't bothered. He was accustomed to shadows, unlike his companions. The trio stopped abruptly when they heard a rustle coming from around the corner, and then another one from the other side. There's someone there. We need to check it out. I'll look ahead. You take care of the other side. And yet you're splitting up. It was quiet. Lucian emerged from the shadows and snuck to the end of the corridor. There was a figure hiding around the corner. She was clutching a gun in her hands. Uh-huh. The vampire ran his tongue over the top row of his teeth, listening to the blood flow in her veins. Yet no doubt it was a woman. He crept up behind her, letting her feel his breath on the back of her neck. She turned sharply, raising her weapon. Lucian, but expected that, stepping aside, staying behind her, flashed his dagger-sharp claws across the back of her neck. The smell of her blood hit his nose, mixed with the sweat as it flowed down. Lucian had a flashing thought that he wouldn't ever drink from her. The woman instinctively reached to touch the wound. The vampire chose the moment to walk behind her again and knock the gun out of her hand. However, feeling the air shift, she turned around and grabbed something out of her pocket with a free hand. Ha! She expected to hear a shot, but instead of a bullet, he was hit with a flash of unbearably bright, burning light. Oh god, so am I. Lucian squeezed his eyes shut, pressing his palms to his lids. It wasn't an ordinary light, otherwise the pain wouldn't have been so strong. The fact that she possessed that device, an incandescent, would only mean one thing. The woman was a member of the Order of Eternal Light. Which, consequently, meant the vampire regeneration would be useless against any wounds inflicted by her gun. A shot rang out. Lucian relied on his acute sense of hearing. Even blinded, he could tell where the bullet was by its whistle and dodged it before it reached his body. Trusting his hunting instincts, he ducked and struck the woman on the knees with his forearm. She didn't fall, but hit the wall instead. The incandescent flashed again. Lucian felt its radiance, even with his eyes closed. It shone in its direction, that he wouldn't be able to slip into the shadows or see. Lucian took on his full-blood form. His opponent raised her gun and fired again, but he was faster. She lost her chance to escape. Rushing forward, Lucian knocked the incandescent out of her hand and in one swift motion, shattering a few of her bones. Ah. I dig it. Gritting her teeth, the woman turned to shove him with her shoulder, gave some distance to the maneuver, but he dodged again, seizing her gun hand. Her fingers tensed, the realization of what was about to happen flashed to her eyes, wide with horror and pain. Lucian froze, only for a moment. However, if he had any doubts, they evaporated as soon as he noticed the gleam of fangs hanging on a chain around her neck, and he bit into her skin, tearing through her veins. So basically, she's a vampire hunter. Hot blood flowed down his lips and chin, bitter and sickly. He released just enough poison to make her stop breathing, quick and almost painless. The gun fell out of the woman's hand, her body went limp, and eventually fell to the floor. Lucian spat and then wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. No longer in his blood form, he bent down and tore the chain from her neck. The fangs clinked dully as he put them in his pocket. Looking around, he realized there was no one else there, and no enemies, no friends. The vampire took the gun and incandescence and continued onward. Surprised the other two didn't come to him. It was quiet. After Lucian disappeared around the corner, Vesper and Shin walked in the opposite direction, staying close and alert. Hearing rustling again, they froze, peering into the darkness. They heard the echo of footsteps. Vesper, Shin, Onyx. Onyx walked faster, closing the distance, and then hugged them both. What's going on here? What is this place?
You tell us. I felt something bite you.
Anamorphix rubbed the back of her neck. I don't know. I passed out, then woke up in one of the corridors. Do you think Nova's here? I noticed a strange door nearby. Maybe we should check it out. A door.
Let's go, Vesper. You see if Lucian needs help.
Are you sure we're going to be fine on our own?
Yes.
Okay. Remember the way, so that you can come back here later, or look for an exit to the first floor of the mansion. Onyx looked away for a second, but eventually nodded. Vesper turned around, while Onyx and Shin went on. Putting his hands in his pockets, the warlock said,
Remember that time when we saved that witch in Venice? What a mess. Even worse than this.
Onyx smirked. Yeah, that was quite the adventure.
Right.
Why do I feel like that was a trick? They continued on their way in silence. I think it was somewhere... Not finishing that sentence, she shoved Shin against the wall. Pulling a knife from behind her back, the cold blade ended up right at the warlock's neck. Shin, however, was prepared for the attack. His runes sent a powerful surge of energy through his body. Onyx was thrown back, dropped the weapon. Shin didn't hesitate to fire a wave of electricity. It burned the Anamorphix, and she lost her balance.
You're not Onyx. What kind of magic is this?
With no intention of waiting for the next blow, Onyx opened her hand. There was something in it, a powder that she blew towards her opponent. Now the air was consumed by a suffocating gas.
Shit.
I knew it was a trick. I called it. Shin buried his nose in the crook of his elbow and ran before the spores could knock him unconscious. Nova didn't turn to the beam towards the panel sliding apart on the wall. She didn't want to look at that slimy... Nova! The time catcher jumped out of bed. Vesper was standing on the other side, pounding on the glass with her fists, her eyes almost wild. Vesper, how did you... Oh, get me out of here. The older witch looked down at the panel on the glass, frantically examining the buttons, and then began to press them one by one. How do you open this thing? Finally, the door to the cell clicked. Both Vesper and Nova rushed to it right away. Then they were face to face. Vesper squeezed the catcher's shoulder, fear and relief in her eyes. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Yes, but how? Later. We need to get out of here. Forgotten is a polymorph, and... She pulled Nova by the wrist. The young woman jerked the other way. Wait, the portrait, it's here. Give me a second. Nova ran to the other room to grab the painting. Okay, let's go. And they ran. Their heavy breathing echoed off the walls. Vesper quickly led them through the maze, which Nova had never seen. Soon they were on the first floor of the mansion, in the very room where the auction took place. Why do I feel like that's not Vesper? They were 2 steps away from the door when some shouted from the hall. Nova, wait! The catcher turned, froze, saw another Vesper in the distance. God damn, I'm good. That's Pagot, not me. No, Nova, don't believe him. It's me, let's go. Vesper, that was standing next to her, pulled her by the arm sharply. Get away from her. The Vesper from the hall summoned a ball of energy. Nova felt the air compress around them with her skin. Another second, and the woman, or the polymorph standing next to her, would be struck by the wave of powerful magic. Obeying her instinct, the catcher created a protective barrier. Streams of green energy slammed into it, forcing its way through. Let's go, Nova. Hold the barrier, Nova. Let go on my signal. She prepared to strike back. Blood roaring in her ears, Nova looked from one Vesper to the other in panic, trying to find at least some difference, but to no avail. Her thoughts raced, one after the other, in search of a way out of the situation. When transformed, polymorphs only mimic the appearance, but don't have the access to the person's memories, right? I need to ask a question. She turned to her rescuer. Vesper? Stumbling from exertion, the young woman inhaled and continued. Tell me. Ooh. These are good questions. What is your favorite game? Where did our first conversation take place? What do you want most in life? What do you want most in life? Are you serious? Answer me. To find the source, what else? Nova, you have to step back right now. Horrified, the catcher noticed that the barrier was beginning to crack under the pressure of the energy. There's no time for more questions. I have to make a decision. The real Vesper is... I hate you so much. Shit. I'm serious. I have sat here for a while and thought about this. I'm gonna go... Real Vesper is... one that attacked. Taking a deep breath, Nova lowered the barrier and somersaulted to the side, but it wasn't enough to reach a safe distance from the strike. Impact threw the catcher even further away. Nova hit the back of her head on the stone floor and tried to sit up. She succeeded, although not right away. I'm not wrong, am I? The imposter, who managed to avoid a direct hit, stumbled to her feet, and then heavy footsteps followed by a shout. Don't let him get away. Rushing in from the hall, Shin summoned a ball of lightning and launched it at the polymorph, who dodged, jumped to his feet, and ran. He transformed and back into Herbert mid-stride. Still disoriented, Nova watched as their enemy made his way to the column, deftly dodging a barrage of spells. She tried to reach out to Onyx, but it wasn't clear whether she heard her. What do I do? Stop time. Descent and Notru. Gathering herself, the catcher threw her hand out and created a time-stopping spear. The polymorph froze mid-step. Ouch. Her shin started to burn. She turned around, losing her concentration on the spell. Zakira was sitting on her leg, snapping her fangs. I hate your little shit. I love tarantulas. They're cute and fuzzy, but you're annoying. She bit me. Second later, however, that became the least of her problems. The polymorph came up and grabbed her from behind, taking her in a chokehold. Taking advantage of the moment, as Akira crawled onto the witch's stomach. Don't move. Summon your presence and she will bite you again. This time you will drop dead in a matter of seconds. He pressed a knife to her side. Don't come any closer or she's dead. Bastard. The blade almost pierced the fabric of her clothes. Nova clung to Herbert's arm tightly, wrapped around her neck. I'm fed up with getting into messes like this. Let me go. Do nothing. You're not gonna kill me. You need me. It's true. He does need her. Herbert squeezed her tighter. I can wait for another catcher to come along. Don't worry about me. Let me go with the painting, then I'll let her live. How can we be sure you won't come after her again? You can't, unless a gentleman's word is enough. I'd advise you to keep your little toy under careful protection regardless. There are undoubtedly many others in the world who would be interested in her. If we... He jerked, breaking into a scream. Enough blabbering! You accept my terms! Her and Shin exchanged glances. Yes, easy. I'm going to start approaching. No. Stay where you are. He roughly pushed his hostage forward, not letting her out of his iron grip. Sudden movements. What followed flashed by in a split second. No! Onyx jumped off the balcony, landed right at Herbert's feet, and attacked Zakira, throwing her off the catcher's body. Zakira was fast. Onyx seemed to anticipate her movement. Meanwhile, Lucian launched himself at the polymorph, grabbing his knife hand. He shoved the catcher aside and knocked Herbert to the ground, pressing the blade to his throat. The Pagat squirmed, but Shin hit him with an electric charge before he could hurt Lucian. Hasawa Mirma Et. A magic whip snapped in the air. The vampire rolled to the side as it coiled around Pagat's body. Herbert shivered in pain. His familiar had just taken her last breath. And then silence. Cold, ominous, threatening silence. Reaching Herbert in two quick steps, she knelt down and wrapped her hands around his throat. Look, Itra. Faint yellow current shot across his body. His body started shaking. Pure rage rose from every depth of her soul and squeezed her heart in its icy palm. She wanted to kill him to get a revenge for those days of utter loneliness, fear, despair. She felt a hand on her shoulder. Go away. But he didn't. On the contrary, he gently pulled her back, even though she tried to resist. Sitting on the floor, she buried her fingers in her hair, digging her nails into her scalp. She felt so impossibly weak. She could be more competent, more capable, more brave, more intelligent. She should be better. A hoarse sob escaped her chest, but her eyes remained dry, her muscles trembled slightly. Nova looked up. Onyx was on the verge of tears. Exhaling slowly, she covered the lower part of her face with her hand to control the surging emotions. Each of her allies watched her with so much sympathy, so much regret. Onyx, what happened to you? The stupid spider happened, but I think I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Oh, wow. You do look a little pale. You are the one who spent days locked up in that slug's house. How are you doing? Nothing came to her mind. How was she? She served the cause. Her every breath concealed lies, deceit. She believed in her mission, yet lay awake every night, tormented by the questions that had no answers. More than anything, she wanted to atone for her sin. More than anything, she wanted to live. Right then, something broke inside of her finally. Jumping to her feet, she ran to the nearest room and shut the door behind her. She couldn't breathe. Frantically pacing back and forth, she tugged at the collar of her clothes, pushing it away from her throat, hoping it would help, but I still feel like she was going to suffocate. She stumbled from her leg, one that Zakira left a bite on, cramped. Her surroundings were blurry. Sitting down on the sofa, Nova squeezed her eyes shut and pressed her little fingers against her temples. They came for me. They came to save me. They came. That means so much. They risked their lives for me. Onyx's heart ached for her. She felt it and was grateful that the Anamorphix was willing to give her some space. I feel so devastated. She just wanted everything to stop, at least for a moment, so that she could take one breath. I need to pull myself together as always. Someday this will all be over. One way or another. Seeking comfort, Nova thought of Renato. Okay. She allowed herself not to think about what was possible and what wasn't. Just pictured him. The wrinkles on his forehead, his elegant profile, the freckles splattered across his face, and the dip above his upper lip that she wanted to touch so badly. She remembered Renato's voice, his harmonious intonations. No matter what he was saying, the words would turn into something airy and warm. People must love listening to his sermons. The catcher imagined him in a church at a pulpit in the light of a colorful rays cascading in through the stained glassed windows. His fingers slide over the rough pages of the Bible, but he barely looks at them. He's memorized the book, understands its importance, but he speaks about what lives in his heart, about what he feels, what he believes in. His faith is pure. It is just, sincere. Renato talks about the kindness and forgiveness, about the fact that God is everywhere and that he is merciful. Nova blinked, chiding herself. No. I'm not allowed. And yet her body relaxed a little. The witch let go of her reverie. Her eyes wandered around the room until they came across a dresser in the corner. These clothes smell like prison. I want to change as soon as possible. Coming up to the dresser, Nova rummaged through it in search of a suitable clothing. Inside, there were a lot of interesting, expensive pieces. Women's outfits were lagging, apparently. Herbert didn't transform into women that often. And yet, he has great taste. I've got to give him that. I don't know, what you're wearing is kind of But let's see what we got. Suggestion. Demand. Ultimatum. Request. I also noticed that during diamond rushes, right, you can't buy all the diamond or the outfits. It's a tough one. I kind of dig this one, though. Is this my choice? Yep. I guess hair. Oh, wait, no necklace. Okay, so we got Desire, Dream, Mirage. I kind of like it. It's like sun, moon, and something else. I don't know. Desire, Dream. I guess I'll go with Mirage. Why not? I like things in space, so... Is this my choice? Yep. And don't worry, I'm sure there's hair! Okay, I'm not gonna lie, it's actually really pretty. For once, I will change the hair. I know I don't do it often, but... Let's go. Just as she finished adjusting the size of a spell, she heard a knock on the door. She didn't answer. They knocked again. I didn't even know if I'm ready to talk to anyone right now. Premium choice will improve your relationship with one of the characters. Come in. In before we have to choose. The door opened. God damn it, stop it! Stop making me choose! Why not? We'll go with Onyx. As soon as Onyx closed the door, Nova stepped towards her. She needed warmth after her days of isolation. She needed her familiar. She was going to hug the Anamorphics, but Onyx beat her to it, almost knocking her down. I was already starting to think that you... Now their connection had been restored. The sensations became even stronger. Dozens of emotions mixed in their hearts, and from incredible relief to new fears. Also, doesn't Shin feel this as well? Onyx squeezed her so tightly that something cracked. Stop that. Stop what? Blaming yourself. I can feel everything, you know. She thinks it's about the Herbert situation, although the real reason is completely different. Swallowing the rage ran her hand behind Onyx's cat ears. It's okay, Onyx. Everything is okay. Even though her soul was trembling when she said those words, Onyx's smile was worth it. They were drawn to each other. Onyx put her palm on the catcher's cheek, wrapping her tail around her. Her eyes glistened, shimmered. Nova felt a slight vibration in her chest, a low purr. So warm, so open, the Anamorphics invited Nova to melt into her. Onyx could feel how much he wanted to accept the invitation. But instead, Nova only shuddered as if struck by a jolt of electricity and retreated, her cheeks flushed, exhaling. Onyx asked weakly, "What's wrong, Nova? Are you scared I'll hurt you? I promise I won't." "No, I can't." "But why?" Seeking the naked despair flowing into those amber eyes, Onyx shook her head. "Don't answer, it's your choice. I will respect that." She cleared her throat. "They decided to contact Constantino. He sent someone here to examine us after the spider bite." As if on cue, someone knocked on the door. "Hello. Sorry to interrupt. My name is, Elenia." Coming closer, she set her bag on the floor and looked at them with a soft smile. "I need to examine you, one at a time." "I think Onyx needs your help more than I do right now. Start with her. I'll wait in the next room." She left. Elenia came for her 5 minutes later and led her back to the living room. Now it was just the two of them. "Let's get started." I'll still give you a 4 out of 5. Alright, so we got 3 moon, 0 status, 2 power. Let's get those diamonds. Alright, so it looks like there is an episode 3 with a portrait of a young man found. What's next? Probably for everybody to help you funnel your power into what you should be doing. Anyway, without further ado, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Head down the description, plenty of things to check out, ways to support, and whatnot. Also, there is the join and thanks feature on the channel. Without further ado, let me know what you thought in the comments section below. Also, please, if you did enjoy and you do want more of this book, let alone this app, let me know in the comments section. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Catch you all later. Peace out.